Sermon 1. In this sermon Imam Ali recalls the creation of earth and sky and the birth of Adam. Praise is due to Allah whose worth cannot be described by speakers, whose bounties cannot be counted by calculators and whose claim to obedience cannot be satisfied by those who attempt to do so, whom the height of intellectual courage cannot appreciate, and the divings of understanding cannot reach. He for whose description no limit has been laid down, no eulogy exists, no time is ordained and no duration is fixed. He brought forth creation through his omnipotence, dispersed winds through his compassion, and made firm the shaking earth with rocks. The foremost in religion is the acknowledgement of Him. The perfection of acknowledging Him is to testify Him. 1. The perfection of testifying Him is to believe in His oneness, the perfection of believing in His oneness is to regard Him pure, and the perfection of His purity is to deny Him attributes, because every attribute is a proof that it is different from that to which it is attributed, and everything to which something is attributed is different from the attribute. Thus whoever attaches attributes to Allah recognizes His like, and who recognizes His like regards Him too, and who regards Him too recognizes parts for Him, and who recognizes parts for Him mistook Him, and who mistook Him pointed at Him, and who pointed at Him admitted limitations for Him, and who admitted limitations for Him numbered Him. Whoever said in what is He, held that He is contained, and whoever said on what is He held He is not on something else. He is a being but not through phenomenon of coming into being. He exists but not from non-existence. He is with everything but not in physical nearness. He is different from everything but not in physical separation. He acts but without connotation of movements and instruments. He sees even when there is none to be looked at from among His creation. He is only one, such that there is none with whom He may keep company or whom He may miss in His absence. The creation of the universe. He initiated creation most initially and commenced it originally, without undergoing reflection, without making use of any experiment, without innovating any movement, and without experiencing any aspiration of mind. He allotted all things their times, put together their variations, gave them their properties, and determined their features, knowing them before creating them, realizing fully their limits and confines and appreciating their propensities and intricacies. When Almighty created the openings of atmosphere, expanse of firmament and strata of winds, He flowed into it water whose waves were stormy and whose surges leapt one over the other. He loaded it on dashing wind and breaking typhoons, ordered them to shed it back, as rain, gave the wind control over the vigor of the rain, and acquainted it with its limitations. The wind blew under it while water flowed furiously over it. Then Almighty created forth wind and made its movement sterile, perpetuated its position, intensified its motion and spread it far and wide. Then He ordered the wind to raise up deep waters and to intensify the waves of the oceans. So the wind churned it like the churning of curd and pushed it fiercely into the firmament, throwing its front position on the rear and the stationary on the flowing till its level was raised and the surface was full of foam. Then Almighty raised the foam onto the open wind and vast firmament and made therefrom the seven skies and made the lower one as a stationary surge and the upper one as protective ceiling and a high edifice without any pole to support it or nail to hold it together. Then He decorated them with stars and the light of meteors and hung in it the shining sun and effulgent moon under the revolving sky, moving ceiling and rotating firmament. The creation of the angels. Then He created the openings between high skies and filled them with all classes of His angels. Some of them are in prostration and do not kneel up. Others in kneeling position and do not stand up. Some of them are in array and do not leave their position. Others are extolling Allah and do not get tired. The sleep of the eye or the slip of wit, or languor of the body or the effect of forgetfulness does not affect them. Among them are those who work as trusted bearers of his message, those who serve as speaking tongues for his prophets, and those who carry to and fro his orders and injunctions. Among them are the protectors of his creatures and guards of the doors of the gardens of paradise. Among them are those also whose steps are fixed on earth but their necks are protruding into the skies, their limbs are getting out on all sides, their shoulders are in accord with the columns of the divine throne, their eyes are downcast before it, they have spread down their wings under it, and they have rendered between themselves and all else curtains of honor and screens of power. They do not think of their Creator through image, do not impute to him attributes of the created, do not confine him within abodes, and do not point at him through illustrations. Description of the creation of Adam. Allah collected from hard, soft, sweet and sour earth, clay which he dripped in water till it got pure, and kneaded it with moisture till it became gluey. From it he carved an image with curves, joints, limbs and segments. He solidified it till it dried up for a fixed time and a known duration. Then he blew into it out of his spirit, whereupon it took the pattern of a human being with mind that governs him, intelligence which he makes use of, limbs that serve him, organs that change his position, sagacity that differentiates between truth and untruth, tastes and smells, colors and species. He is a mixture of clays of different colors, cohesive materials, divergent contradictories and differing properties like heat, cold, softness and hardness. Then Allah asked the angels to fulfill his promise with them and to accomplish the pledge of his injunction to them by acknowledging him through prostration to him and submission to his honored position. So Allah said, "Be prostrate towards Adam," and they prostrated except Iblis, Satan. Quran 2:34, 7:11, 17, 61, 18:50, 20, 116. Self-importance withheld him and vice overcame him, so that he took pride in his own creation with fire and treated contemptuously the creation of clay. So Allah allowed him time in order to let him fully deserve his wrath, and to complete man's test and to fulfill the promise he had made to Satan. Thus, he said, "Verily you have been allowed time till the known day." Quran 15:38, 38, 81. Thereafter, Allah inhabited Adam in a house where he made his life pleasant and his stay safe, and he cautioned him of Iblis and his enmity. Then his enemy, Iblis, envied his abiding in paradise and his contacts with the virtuous. So he changed his conviction into wavering and determination into weakness. He thus converted his happiness into fear and his prestige into shame. Then Allah offered to Adam the chance to repent, taught him words of his mercy, promised him return to his paradise and sent him down to the place of trial and procreation of progeny. Allah chooses his prophets. From his, Adam's progeny Allah chose prophets and took their pledge for his revelation and for carrying his messages their trust. In course of time many people perverted Allah's trust with them and ignored his position and took compeers along with him. Satan turned them away from knowing him and kept them aloof from his worship. Then Allah sent his messengers and series of his prophets towards them to get them to fulfill the pledges of his creation, to recall to them his bounties, to exhort them by preaching, to unveil before them the hidden virtues of wisdom and show them the signs of his omnipotence, namely the sky which is raised over them, the earth that is placed beneath them, means of living that sustain them, deaths that make them die, ailments that turn them old and incidents that successively betake them. Allah never allowed his creation to remain without a prophet deputized by him, or a book sent down from him, or a binding argument or a standing plea. These messengers were such that they did not feel little because of smallness of their number or of largeness of the number of their falsifiers. Among them was either a predecessor who would name the one to follow or the follower who had been introduced by the predecessor. The prophethood of Muhammad. In this way ages passed by and times rolled on, fathers passed away while sons took their places till Allah deputized Muhammad, peace be upon him and his progeny, as his prophet, in fulfillment of his promise and in completion of his prophethood. His pledge had been taken from the prophets, his traits of character were well reputed and his birth was honorable. The people of the earth at this time were divided in different parties, their aims were separate and ways were diverse. They either likened Allah with his creation or twisted his names or turned to else than him. Through Muhammad p.b.u.h.a.h.p. Allah guided them out of wrong and with his efforts took them out of ignorance. Then Allah chose for Muhammad, peace be upon him and on his progeny, to meet him, selected him for his own nearness, regarded him too dignified to remain in this world and decided to remove him from this place of trial. So he drew him towards himself with honor. Allah may shower his blessing on him, and his progeny. The Holy Quran and Sunnah. But the Prophet left among you the same which other prophets left among their peoples, because prophets do not leave them untended, in dark, without a clear path and a standing ensign, namely the book of your Creator clarifying its permission and prohibitions, its obligations and discretion, its repealing injunctions and the repealed ones, its permissible matters and compulsory ones, its particulars and the general ones, its lessons and illustrations, its long and the short ones, its clear and obscure ones, detailing its abbreviations and clarifying its obscurities. In it there are some verses whose knowledge, 1, is obligatory and others whose ignorance by the people is permissible. It also contains what appears to be obligatory according to the book 2, but its repeal is signified by the Prophet's action, sunnah, or that which appears compulsory according to the Prophet's action but the book allows not following it. Or there are those which are obligatory in a given time but not so after that time. Its prohibitions also differ. Some are major regarding which there exists the threat of fire, hell, and others are minor for which there are prospects of forgiveness. There are also those of which a small portion is also acceptable to Allah, but they are capable of being expanded. In this very sermon he spoke about Hajj. Allah has made obligatory upon you the pilgrimage, Hajj, to his sacred house, which is the turning point for the people who go to it as beasts or pigeons go towards spring water. Allah the Glorified made it a sign of their supplication before his greatness and their acknowledgement of his dignity. He selected from among his creation those who on listening to his call responded to it and testified his word. They stood in the position of his prophets and resembled his angels who surround the divine throne, securing all the benefits of performing his worship and hastening towards his promised forgiveness. Allah the Glorified made it, his sacred house, an emblem for Islam and an object of respect for those who turn to it. He made obligatory its pilgrimage and laid down its claim for which he held you responsible to discharge it. Thus, Allah the Glorified said, and purely, for Allah, is incumbent upon mankind, the pilgrimage to the house, for those who can afford to journey thither. And whoever denieth then verily, Allah is self-sufficiently independent of the worlds. Quran 3:96. End of sermon. 1. The foremost in religion, din, is his knowledge. The literal meaning of din is obedience, and its popular sense is code, whether literal sense is taken or the popular one. In either case, if the mind is devoid of any conception of divinity, there would be no question of obedience, nor of following any code. because when there is no aim there is no point in advancing towards it, where there is no object in view there is no sense in making efforts to achieve it. Nevertheless, when the nature and guiding faculty of man bring him in contact with a superior authority and his taste for obedience and impulse of submission subjugates him before a deity, he finds himself bound by certain limitations as against abject freedom of activity. These very limitations are din, religion, whose point of commencement is knowledge of Allah and acknowledgement of His being. After pointing out the essentials of divine knowledge, Amir al-Mu'minin has described its important constituents and conditions. He has held those stages of such knowledge which people generally regard as the point of highest approach to be insufficient. He says that its first stage is that with the natural sense of search for the unknown and the guidance of conscience are on hearing from the followers of religions an image of the unseen being known as Allah is formed in the mind. This image in fact is the forerunner of the obligation to thinking and reflection and to seeking His knowledge. But those who love idleness, or are under pressure of environment, do not undertake this search despite creation of such image and the image fails to get testified. In this case they remain deprived of divine knowledge, and since their inaccess to the stage of testifying after the formation of images by volition they deserve to be questioned about it. But one who is moved by the power of this image goes further and considers thinking and reflection necessary. In this way one reaches the next stage in the attainment of divine knowledge, namely to search for the Creator through diversification of creation and species of creatures, because every picture is a solid and inflexible guide to the existence of its painter and every effect to the action of its cause. When he casts his glance around himself he does not find a single thing which might have come into existence without the act of a maker, so much so that he does not find the sign of a footstep without a walker nor a construction without a builder. How can he comprehend that this blue sky with the sun and the moon in its expanse and the earth with the exuberance of its grass and flowers could have come into existence without the action of a creator? Therefore, after observing all that exists in the world and the regulated system of the entire creation, no one can help concluding that there is a creator for this world of diversities, because existence cannot come out of non-existence, nor can existence sprout forth from nothingness. But the prophet left among you the same which other prophets left among their peoples, because prophets do not leave them untended, in dark, without a clear path and a standing ensign, namely the book of your Creator, clarifying its permission and prohibitions, its obligations and discretion, its repealing injunctions and the repealed ones, its permissible matters and compulsory ones, its particulars and the general ones, its lessons and illustrations, its long and the short ones, its clear and obscure ones, detailing its abbreviations and clarifying its obscurities. The Holy Quran has pointed to this reasoning thus. What? About Allah is there any doubt, the originator of the heavens and the earth? 14:10. But this stage would also be insufficient if this testimony in favor of Allah is tarnished by belief in the divinity of some other deity. The third stage is that His existence should be acknowledged along with belief in unity and oneness. Without this the testimony to Allah's existence cannot be complete, because if more gods are believed in He would not be one, whereas it is necessary that He should be one. The reason is that in case of more than one God the question would arise whether one of them created all this creation or all of them together. If one of them created it there should be some differential to distinguish him, otherwise he would be accorded preferential position without reason, which is unacceptable to the mind. If all have created it collectively, then the position has only two forms: either he cannot perform his functions without the assistance of others, or he is above the need for their assistance. The first case means his incapability and being in need of others, while the other case means that they are several regular performers of a single act, and the fallacy of both has already been shown. If we assume that all the gods performed the act of creation by dividing among themselves, then, in this case, all the creation will not bear the same relationship towards the Creator, since each creature will bear relationship only to its own Creator, whereas every creature should have one and the same relationship to all creators. This is because all the creation should have one and the same relationship to all the creators as all the created in their capacity to accept effect, and all the creators in their capacity to produce effect should be similar. In short, there is no way but to acknowledge him as one, because in believing in numerous creators there remains no possibility of the existence of any other thing, and destruction proves implicit for the earth, the sky, and everything in creation. Allah the Glorified has expressed this argument in the following words: had there been in the heavens and the earth other gods except Allah, they both had been in disorder. Quran 21:22. The fourth stage is that Allah should be regarded free of all defects and deficiencies, and devoid of body, form, illustration, similarity, position of place or time, motion, stillness, incapability and ignorance, because there can be no deficiency or defect in the perfect being, nor can anyone be deemed like him, because all these attributes bring down a being from the high position of the Creator to the low position of the created. That is why, along with unity, Allah has held purity from deficiency of equal importance. Say, He, Allah, is one, alone. Allah, the needless. He begetteth not, nor is he begotten. And there is none like unto him. Quran 112, 1-4. Vision perceiveth him not, and he perceiveth all vision. He is the subtle, the all-aware. Quran 6, 104. So coin ye not any similitudes to Allah, verily Allah knoweth everything, and ye know not. Quran 16:74. Nothing whatsoever is there like the like of him, and he alone is the all-hearing and the all-seeing. Quran 42:11. The fifth stage of completing his knowledge is that attributes should not be put in him from outside, lest there be duality in his oneness, and deviating from its proper connotation, unity may fall in the labyrinth of 1 and 3 and 3 and 1, because his being is not a combination of essence and form, so that attribute may cling to him like smell in the flowers or brightness in the stars. Rather, he is the fountainhead of all attributes and needs no medium for manifestation of his perfect attributes. If he is named omniscient, it is because the signs of his knowledge are manifest. If he is called omnipotent, it is because every particle points to his omnipotence and activity. And if to him is attributed the power to listen or to see, it is because the cohesion of the entire creation and its administration cannot be done without hearing or seeing, but the existence of these attributes in him cannot be held to be in the same way as in the creation, namely that he should be capable to know only after he acquires knowledge, or he should be powerful and strong only after energy runs into his limbs, because taking attributes as separate from his being would connote duality, and where there is duality, unity disappears. That is how Amir al-Mu'minin has rejected the idea of attributes being addition to his being, presented unity in its true significance, and did not allow unity to be tainted with stains of multiplicity. This does not mean that adjectives cannot at all be attributed to him, as this would be giving support to those who are groping in the dark abyss of negativism, although every nook and corner in the entire existence is brimming with his attributes and every particle of creation stands witness that he has knowledge, he is powerful, he hears, he sees. He nurtures under his care and allows growth under his mercy. The intention is that for him nothing can be suggested to serve as an adjunct to him, because his self includes attributes and his attributes connote his self. Let us learn this very theme in the words of Al-Imam Abu Abdillah Ya Far ibn Muhammad as Sadiq p.b.u.h., comparing it with the belief in unity adopted by other religions and then appreciate who is the exponent of the true concept of unity. The Imam says, Our Allah the Glorified, the Magnificent has ever had knowledge as His self even though there was nothing to know, sight is His self even though there was nothing to know, sight is His self even though there was nothing to behold, hearing is His self even though there was nothing to hear, and potence is His self even though there was nothing to be under His potence. When he created the things and the object of knowledge came into existence, his knowledge became related to the known, hearing related to the heard, sight related to the seen, and potence related to its object. Attahad by Ash Sheikh as Sadaq, p.139. This is the belief over which the Imams of the Prophet's family are unanimous, but the majority group has adopted a different course by creating the idea of differentiation between his self and attributes. Ash Sharistani says on page 42 of his book Kitab al-Milal wa an-Nihal. According to Abul Hasan al-Ashbari, Allah knows through the attribute of knowledge, is powerful through activity, speaks through speech, hears through hearing and sees through sight. If we regard attributes distinct from self in this manner, there would be two alternatives. Either the attributes must have existed in him from ever or they must have occurred later. In the first case we have to recognize as many eternal objects as the attributes which all will share with him in being eternal, but Allah is above what the people deem him to have equals. In the second case, in addition to subjecting him to the alternations, it would also mean that before the acquiring of the attributes he was neither scient, nor powerful, nor hearer nor beholder, and this runs counter to the basic tenet of Islam. Allah hath decreed trade lawful and hath forbidden interest. Quran 2:275. And when you have finished the prayer, remember Allah standing, and sitting, and reacting, and when ye are secure from danger, establish prayer. Quran 4:103. O ye men! Eat of what is in the earth lawful and good, and follow not the footsteps of Satan, for verily he is an open enemy unto you. Quran 2:168. And, say thou, I am only a man like you, it is revealed unto me that your God is but one God, therefore whosoever desireth to meet his Lord, let him do good deeds, and associate not any one in the worship of his Lord. Quran 18:110. What? Enjoin ye upon the people righteousness and ye forget your own selves. Yet ye read the scripture. What do ye not understand? Quran 2:44.